We are back and we are going to continue with this section. Hradec, pronounced right?
Yes. In
Hradec.
Portuguese, we say Hradec, but in German, it's gonna be Hradec.
Okay, let's go for Hradec. So Patricia Hradec with Anne Rice's Prince Lestat and his Blood Communion. I'm gonna read Patricia's bio over here. Patricia held a PhD in letters from Universidade Presbiteriana Mackenzie. She conducts researches in the field of Gothic literature and fantastic universes, more specifically with literary vampires. She has been a member of the Abralic, Brazilian Association of Comparative Literature, since 2019, and she's a member of the Gothic Studies group at the State University of Rio de Janeiro. She worked as a teacher in letters and pedagogy courses in several renowned colleges, but currently works with basic education in the areas of Portuguese and English in private schools. Patricia is already a common name over here in our conference, participating, I think, for the third time, if I'm not mistaken. So, ladies and gentlemen, Patricia, the floor is yours.
Well, it's been a pleasure being here another year. Unfortunately, not together in person in Brussels, but who knows next year. And thank you for having online so we can get together and talk anyway. This way we can talk about our loved vampires. And today I'm going to talk about Prince Lestat and his Blood Communion. It's a character created by Anne Rice. So, Anne Rice, she was born in October 4th, 1941, and she passed away in December 11, 2021. So it's very recently, but her lost, but she left book as soon as sagas, and the longest and maybe the most famous is the Vampire Chronicles. It's composed by 13 books published from 1976 to 2018. After she created other universes like the Witches, the trilogy The Mayflower Witches, and 2 books about werewolves, the Wolf Gift Chronicles. She also wrote about angels, about erotic literature, and she created a lot of things. But with these vampire witches, especially, she created a vast universe. So to understand it better, we have this book, Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles of a Battery, compiled by and written by Beckett Giotto. So, as Anne Rice herself explained in the introduction, this new guide suggests vast complexity and organization, the maturity of characters over the passages of decades, and the development of a hero whose journey was inevitable from the start. So, as she was creating this universe for more than 40 years, so this book is very important for us to understand all the word, because sometimes the vampires meets the vampires meet the witches, and we get a little confused with some characters. But with this book we can have all the universe, all the explanations, because they put the entire saga from the Vampire Chronicles and also the Mayflower Witches. So it's very interesting for us to understand all this universe. But she created the main character is Vampire Lestat. He appears in almost all literary work from the universe. And Annie Rice explained why she created him. She said, I was fascinated by the idea of the person who refuses to be bad at being bad. I wanted a hero. So she created Lestat as a hero. And as a hero, he has many adventures, saving the vampiric world against evil villains. So, for example, in the Blood Communion, he needs to save three loved ones. His mother, Gabrielle, his lover, Louis, and his mentor, Marius. So, but there are some reflections about him. The first reflection that I start thinking is what character traits does he have? And the second one is why is he a prince, not a king? Because we are going to see that he is first a villain, after a hero, and after a prince, but not a king. And we are going to reflect about that. Why is he important for the whole of the contemporary vampires? And what makes him special? So I selected some of the supposed answers for these questions. The first one is he will appear in this movement, first a villain, after a hero, and after a prince. So in the first volume of the saga, we can understand that he is the villain. So usually we need to analyze this character traits. So in the first interview with the vampire, we have this part. I'd like to meet the devil some night, he said once with a malignant smile. I'd chase him from here to the wilds of the Pacific. I am the devil. So in this volume, he kills and deceives people with no regrets. But in the second one, he's going to be the hero. In The Vampire Lestat, published in 1985, he's a hero because he's going to clean the society, killing just evil people. The part that I put here for us to check is this. The only problem I had was that murders to fed upon were scarcity. I had to work for a living, but I'd always been a hunter. I was learning more all the time about my killers, the drug dealers, the pimps, the murderers, who fell in with the motorcycle gangs. I was resolute that I would not drink innocent blood. So, from a villain, he changed to a hero. He was resolute not to drink innocent blood. So imagine this situation. Now he's a hero. And he's also a pop star because he's going to show the world that he is the vampire Lestat. He is going to be a singer, a movie star, a rock star, and he's going to appear in MTV in all this part, showing the world that there is a universe, a vampire universe. So that's why he's very interesting with this. And after in the 11th volume, after many adventures, Lestat is sworn in as a prince, the prince of the vampires. So, and in the Prince Lestat, published in 2014, an older vampire named Gregory will tell him, lead for now, Lestat. You must lead us. So he's going to have this responsibility. So, and Lestat himself will answer, I had to think now in terms of our tribe, our species. So as there are vampires everywhere, even here in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, the prince needs to lead them to create a worldwide tribe that could help all the vampires. And he writes about that. I will not be the prince of the damage. We are reborn. This is an allusion with the queen of the damage. Because in the third volume, we have the queen of the damned. That is the first vampires, Akasha, that is the first vampire. And he says, I will not be the prince of the damned. We are reborn. So he's going to start a new legacy. And with this new legacy, we can think about the second question. That is Lestat is the prince, not the king. But he's described as the brat prince. They said, you brat prince, my prince, oh boy, Lestat. He's the brat prince. Being him as a brat prince indicates a young and jovial person. So king indicates superiority, but even as a prince, he is respected by the old ones. There is a passage that one of the old vampire says, we are all in awe of you, prince. We don't feel superior to you. Seth, it is the son of Akasha. So it's the second from the hierarchy. The Akasha was the first and uncle, and then Seth. So imagine he was respecting Lestat as a prince, as an authority. And when we think about a king, sometimes we create the image of an old person with white hair, a lot of wisdom, but prince, the image is different. A young person, the son of the king. Also with a lot of qualities, loyalty, wisdom, but as young. And Nina Auerbach wrote about Anne Rice's vampire. She said, its vampirism is a select club, a fraternity of beauty and death, whose members are expected to be handsome and refined, enough not to irritate each other throughout eternity. So, in this situation, he being him a prince, not a king, gives us the idea of something new, something young, but handsome, refined, and to get everything in perfect harmony. As Auerbach said, not to irritate each other throughout eternity. So they want to live happily forever. Yeah, in this situation, as Nina Auerbach says. But why is he important for our contemporary vampires? Because the Nina Auerbach also answers this. She says Anne Rice's vampires are compulsive storytellers. So they presented to us a vampiric world parallel to ours. So the vampires are not that evil anymore. So that's why they are important, because they are not vampires that are evil. They have the duality of the humans. They are sometimes very good, but sometimes very evil. So they have this duality as humans being. And in Anne Rice's book, she wrote, vampires had not made such horrors themselves, but merely collect them, confirming over and over that men were capable of far greater evil than vampires. So in this case, the vampires, they are bad, but they are not so bad as the human, or they are the same as the human. And this is in line with what Bauman said in his book Collateral Damage, that regular people commit atrocities and are capable of acting like sadists and perverts. So sometimes we discover that humans are more evil than vampires. And Lestat is special talking about the fourth question. Lestat is special because he achieved all that he wanted, as he explains: visibility, significance, recognition. All that I'd ever wanted as a boy heading to Paris with a head full of dreams, and I'd ever wanted I now had right here with my brothers and sisters. I had all that I had ever hoped for, and I had it here and now in this place and among my own people. So he managed to organize his tribe, and now he rules as a prince. He also says in Blood Communion, the victory of our own tribe to embrace one another and let go of the hatred that had divided us for centuries was my victory. To the blood communion, I said in my heart, because they were indeed my people, my tribe, my family, and whatever happened thereafter wouldn't be just my story. No, it would be the story of us all. All in all, they continue as the storyteller, and that's the importance of Rice's Vampire. They continue to have this universe, they continue to have all this communion, and as they finish the saga in the 13th book, they in this situation they are going to live happily forever. So unfortunately, Annie Rice died in 2021. His son that organizes all the books and all the rights, never said about having a book that she wrote, nothing about that. So probably this is the end of the 13th book saga. And we need to think about another universe with their own vampires, sometimes very similar to vampires that are near the other stories, like sometimes like Dracula, sometimes like uh, 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 even Twilight. But we have this word that is a complex word, and with a lot of characters, and with a lot of involvement with the vampires, but Lestat is the center of everything. So that's what I wanted to present. Thank you. These are the references that I use, and here is my email. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Very nice presentation. Always nice to have you over here. And now we are open to questions. If anybody wants to pose a question, get the courage to ask questions. First of all, I would like to congratulate your work. I was even talking to Beto that I haven't read every year we confess something in a vampire conference that we shouldn't confess, but we always confess. And I haven't read these books. I've only watched Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise's movie actually. So I don't have that close identification with your research since I haven't read them. But I always like to see your presentations because you show always a very passionate way of approaching this object and a very dedicated way of approaching, and I always learn a lot. But if you don't mind, I would like to bring a little bit to the movies because it's the only reference that I have. and you were talking a lot about Lestat. And one thing that I noticed in the movies is that we have two Lestats. First, we have Tom Cruise, and then we have that other actor from Queen of the Damned, that I forgot his name. And they are extremely different Lestats over there.
Yeah, Thompson, I think.
Yes, yes. And I would like just a curiosity for you to tell me about the parallel between the original character and these two transpositions. Which one do you think it's near to what is the proposal, and some of these nuances, if you could?
Yeah, I've never thought about that, but now we have three yet to make the reference. The first, the Tom Cruise, I think it's Townsend, something Townsend, and the third one that is the series, yeah, the
Yeah,
Vampire Chronicle series. But I think I don't know if it's because I start to reading uh, after Lestat, Tom Cruise Lestat. I start to reading after Tom Cruise Lestat. I remember that I went to the movies, and in the first day, because I and it was a coincidence. I was with a friend at a shopping mall, and we wanted to go to the movie, and we decided, let's see what we are going to see. Let's see a vampire movie. Okay, here. And I just love it. I love it, the history. I didn't even imagine there are a lot of differences from the book. The main the Louis, he has a son in on the movie, but in the book he has a brother. That's why he start to feeling very bad with his life, because he supposed to how can I say, he was a little his brother wanted to be a priest, and he wanted to sell everything that they have to come back to France. But Louis didn't want and didn't allow it him. So he decided to commit suicide, the brother. That's why Louis was so nervous and so depressed with his life. And then he met Lestat. In on the movie they put like he had a wife, and they had a son, both died, and then he started to getting depressed. And it's funny because Annie Rice was very asked about they were asking about why they did that. She did that. Yes, she put not a brother, but a wife and son. She told about she was a little, in that time it was the 90s that the movie released, and they were like a little nervous if they got to get they will get together, Lestat and Louis as a, a a couple. So they decided to put this way. That's why I think now, in our time, the series that they have, Lestat and Louis, they have a love, a very strong love, because it's our time. In that time, from the interview with the vampire, it was a little difficult for them to have this. But in the book, it's this way. It's like the series. They have a love. That's why he said when in blood communion, when he lost three people, he needs to save three people. He said, my mother, my lover, Louis, and my mentor, Marius. So he gets this love as a very strong love. That in the movie it was not it didn't appear. And the first movie, Interview with the Vampire, Annie Rice wrote the uh, uh, how can I say roteiro? I don't remember.
Script.
The script, that's right, the script. Annie Rice wrote the script. And the second one, she didn't. That's why the book, the second film, Queen of the Damned, it's a mix with the second book and the third book. They mixed the vampire Lestat, that he is going to show up as a rock star. It's a mix with the vampire Lestat and the Queen of the Damned. That's why people don't like, because it's very confused. If you don't know these things, it's very confused. But I think that Lestat is very he's the brat prince, you know. That Lestat from the second movie, The Queen of the Damned, I think he looks like the brat prince because he's very handsome and he's very young, and he has the attitudes of a young person. So I think it's very different from Tom Cruise. And I think the third Lestat that we have from the series is it's a mix of everything. So he's a mix of the Lestat from Tom Cruise that is gets older, like not like a brat, and he's not as brat as the second one, but he's a mix of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Patricia. This you can write a paper about this
Yeah.
answer that you had, very detailed. Anybody else has any questions, observations, comments?
I think it's a good suggestion, you know, to think about these three, the
Yeah.
fourth Lestat, the Lestat from the book, and the three ones. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is very commonly what I like to think because I really enjoy
Right.
the dialogues between media. So,
Yeah.
well, it looks like we don't have more questions. So, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much, Patricia. Great presentation. And let's hope that next year we are going to form that big group in Romania that we always
Yeah.
wish to form.
Yeah.
We always promise to go to Romania the next year and we never go, but let's hope next year is gonna be the year.
Yeah, and I was very envy with the Brand Castle tour, you know.
Yeah.
I was envious. I said, "Oh, come on! I'm going to work, and they are going to enjoy." Yeah.
Yeah, I went in 2018 and I wanted to go back uh, as soon as possible. Uh, let's go. Let's move on. This wasn't called the Brazilian session, but it's obviously a Brazilian session, right? Because now we have Roberto Cavalcante with the paper Eat Me, Accounts of the Tupinambá Anthropophagic Ritual Wendigo in the Ravenous. I'm going to read Roberto's bio over here. So Beto is a Brazilian historian, graphic designer, and digital artist. Master's student in art history at the Federal University of São Paulo, graduated in art history and design. His researches address visual and social representations of the human body in the afterlife and mass culture portrayed in contemporary vampire horror movies. As a South American researcher, he intends to highlight the colonial references that construct or deconstruct the current cosmology of the supernatural in the Americas. He works as a graphic designer at the Museum of the Portuguese Language and is a human rights activist in São Paulo, Brazil. So, Beto, welcome. The stage is yours.
Obrigado, me ouvem? Thank
Yeah,
you so much,
but
Yuri. Oh, I just forgot my English for...
Beto started marking his Brazilian element over here.
Well, thank you so much. I was in the emotion of the moment, so I will start my presentation. Well, first of all, I will try to make a very, very brief introduction to my research here. My name and to myself, my name is Roberto. I'm from Brazil. Today we're going to talk about research that I'm doing now in my master thesis about a very specific movie called Ravenous from 1990 and from a very incredible director, Antonia Bird, from a British director. And she made a movie about a Wendigo, but it's a kind of Wendigo and vampiric creature at the same time. And when I was studying this movie, I just came across the Tupinambá anthropophagic ritual, who is indigenous people here from Brazil. And I just discovered that the Tupinambá, the Tupinambás from Brazil, start all the movements and all the legends about the cannibals, indigenous people, very, almost a century before the British colonized the Virginia, the North American. So when the British got to America, to the United States, they already have the imagery of the cannibal Indians of America because of Brazil. And for a lot of time in the history, Brazilian indigenous people in the colonial times were seen as cannibals. So that was a surprise for me as a Brazilian to know that a British American a British American movie that I was studying is in fact based upon accounts of legends of Brazilian indigenous people. So I will start this presentation now, and I hope I got the time because I have a lot to talk about, and it's a very specific matter. So please be patient with me because I don't know if my English will will serve me well this all these words that I have to say to you. Okay. Um, Algonquin Wendigo. The Algonquin people from North America is a indigenous people who lives who still exist in United States and Canada, and they live in the Atlantic coast of the West Coast, I guess, the East Coast of America, of the United States. So these people, the Wendigo legend began with him, with these people, and for them, the Wendigo is a spirit. It's not a being. It's not a material creature. The Wendigo is a force of nature, a dark force of nature, who is evoked by the greed and the hunger. So in North America, when they have the winter times and they are starving for food, uh, the anthropophagic, the cannibalistic behavior became a solution for the hunger for not to die. So the Wendigo emerged from that, saying that endure your hunger, be strong, don't eat your brother, don't eat your sister, don't eat your mother, don't eat your fellow human being. Please stay strong, because if you eat some human being, you will never eat another thing. You will have hunger forever. So the spirit of the Wendigo is the spirit of the eternal hunger. So you cannot ever eat another thing than a human body if you eat a human body. And this is not because you became stronger. On the contrary, you became weaker, you became pale, you became thinner, you became cursed forever to eat another human flesh and never stop starving. This is a very serious curse. And for them, even pronounce the name Wendigo is a omen that you may attract the Wendigo. So as Whoopi Goldberg will say in Ghost, we're in danger, girl, now. Here is a Wendigo creature, more contemporary, I guess, from Hannibal, the series. The Wendigo in the Hannibal series represent the cannibalistic instinct of Hannibal Lecter. And so we can see that this act of eating human flesh but here we have a very big difference, as we're gonna see in Ravenous, the movie, is that this not became a curse anymore, like the vampirism we started as a curse from a lost soul who cannot rest in peace. The Wendigo stopped to being a curse to become a superpower being. I mean, if you eat another man's flesh, you became stronger, you became faster, you became a superhero type of vampire. And you can in Hannibal, we see that as the doctor eats the character of the Hannibal Lecter or another cannibals in the cinema and movie, we always see that they do this for pleasure and not because they have to, and not because they are cursed, or not because they are in suffering. So they do this for pleasure, like the modern vampire who became a vampire to enjoy life and all this potency. So we're gonna start with Ravenous, and then later I will talk about the Tupinamba people who start all this. In Ravenous, we have the account of a soldier, Colonel Boyd, who's played by Guy Pearce. And he is a coward soldier who, in the Mexican US war, Civil War, play dead so he cannot be killed by the Mexicans because the Mexicans win that battle. And so he played dead, and he's put in a common grave with all of the soldiers, his fellow soldiers, on top of him. So the blood of the wounds of the soldiers starts to run from their body and mixing and stopping in his mouth. So he eats the blood, and he became living, kind of gain nutrition of this blood. And of course, immediately in the same moment, he became a Wendigo, as we're gonna see in the movie. So what is a Wendigo? If he tastes the human flesh or human blood, he will become viral, manly, stronger, faster, and all the things we can expect from a soldier. He will become a superhero, and that's what happened. He drinks the blood and became stronger and smarter, and he alone outcome the Mexicans who win the battle and came back to the United States as a war hero when in fact he was a coward who played dead. So in America he started to became sick because he cannot eat anymore common food. He cannot eat cow or beef or steaks. He only consumed vegetables and became sick, thinner, and with a very sick face, I can say that. And then in America, he meets this character, Colonel Ives, who is Wendigo as well, but nobody knows that until the middle of the movie. But he's the other part of the Wendigo. I mean, Colonel John Boyd, he is a Wendigo. He knows he wants to eat human flesh. He wants to taste blood. He wants to be stronger again. But he's moral, so he don't do that because he think it's wrong and it's not what he wants to be. And then we have Colonel Ives, who is loving it, the power that the Wendigo gave to him. Became a Wendigo, became a flesh eater, a human eater is amazing. So he loves that. So we have a very Lestat and Louis configuration here. We have two men who are in a very strange relationship, homoerotic relationship, and one of them loves to be a Wendigo and to be stronger and faster, and the other one is very suffering from that. And here we have the indigenous character George, showing a drawing of the Wendigo and explaining to us, the audience, what is a Wendigo, as I explained to yourself. And here we have all this relationship. You see, Colonel Boyd here is very sick and very thin and very weak. And Colonel Ives are always tempting him with his own blood, saying, this is a vampire, this is not a Wendigo, this is not the cursed feminine creature who had to eat human flesh to survive a winter. This is a vampire. And this is a homoerotic vampire, and this is a kind of Lestat Louis configuration couple. And this is the transubstantiation. I mean, the transubstantiation of the blood is a thing that the Catholic and the European in the colonial era cannot understand about the cannibals in America and the anthropophagic people in America, because when they see a people eating another people in a ritual and not for pleasure or for gain power or for gain strength or for gain spiritual protection, like in the communion of the Catholic Church, you cannot understand why they do this. So it's very frustrating for the colonial people to see the indigenous doing a very complex ritual in Brazil, I'm talking about now, to a very complex anthropophagic ritual, and don't get any gain from that. You don't have pleasure, you don't have super strength, you don't have spiritual protection, you are just eating another people's flesh. So it's a very strange for the European men of the 16th century understand that. So here we have the church and the movie as well, playing a part of the faith and the moral and obvious the relationship between the body and the blood of Christ that everyone's eat in the Holy Mass, and the body and the blood that they eat from each other. This is a very incredible movie. I will not stand it and give you spoilers about the movie, but I will completely recommend you this Overanalyzing Revenues is a documentary in YouTube from Andrew Raykick from the Atom Shea Films. He's a filmmaker, he's amazing, and this is an incredible documentary about this movie, and see the movie as well. Now I'll go to the Tupinambá, and where it all began, the cannibal indigenous American people. It all began with Hans Staden in the 16th century. Hans Staden was a military man, a mercenary from Germany, and he go to Brazil 2 times as a mercenary working for the Portuguese, and in the trades with the indigenous people living in the Atlantic coast. Okay, so we have here he came to Brazil at the first time and the second time, and in the second time he became a prisoner of the Tupinambá people in Brazil, because his ship sink and he come to the beach where here in the state of São Paulo, where the Tupinambá people live, and they think that Hans Staden was a Frenchman, so the French are enemies from the Tupinambá who are friends with the Portuguese, so they prisoner him, and he lives 9 months as a prisoner of the Tupinambás. And in this 9 months, he saw a lot of things. And when he escaped, he goes to Germany and starts writing a book about this 9 months he passed in captivity. We are talking the very beginning of the colonization of Brazil. We are talking about like 40 years after the first caravel arriving at our shores. Here we have the book. The title of the book is Hans Staden True History and Description of a Country of Wild, Naked, Green, Man-Eating People in the New World America. This is incredible. This is so terrible. This is how the book became a bestseller in Europe. In this same year, he was launched, the first edition. The book became a phenomenon. Everyone wants to read it, want to know about it. And then the Tupinamba people became a phenomenon in Europe, as we're going to see later. Here is a detail of a woodcut from the cape from the cover of the book. And we see here an indigenous woman lay in her bed. We call her in Brazil rede, this bed, and a lot of people still have this on our homes. And there is a barbecue with a lot of legs and arms, the right corner of the image, and she herself is eating feet. It's terrible. Here is a woodcut that Hans him made and put in his book, and we can see here in the center they boiled a person and children's and women's and everything and women and here in the right corner we have Hamstaden praying. Oh my God, what they are doing? This is not Christian. This is not. He was the hero in his own book, so he prayed to God to get free from this devilish people. And here's the book in the last edition of 2018, and Europeans shorted the title of the book, and now it's just Handstaden True History. And we're gonna see there is nothing so true about it, but it's still considered a true history in Europe today. The book was a phenomenon of selling, and a lot of people start to make artworks from them, from the relates of the Handstaden book, and Theodore de Brie was one of them. He make engravings so of the ritual, how the ritual take part. First, the dance of the ritual, and here we have the Tupinamba people dance with all of the clothing and costume they use for this particular ritual, the Tupinamba cape, which we're gonna see further is a very important thing in the Tupinamba culture and in Brazilian culture as well. And here is the ritual of the execution of the prisoner, when the Tupinambas and the prisoner they start to change to each other. So the executors say, "You eat my people, you kill my people. So now I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna eat you." And the prisoners say, "Yes, I eat your people, I kill your people, and if you kill me and eat me, my people will come and kill and eat you as well." And this is, and then he was executed with one hit of the borduna. This kind of weapon here is a very heavy wooden sword. This is a very specific ritual because the Tupinambás people, the base of its society is the revenge. So they have to live to revenge their ancestors and themselves. So the revenge is the base of the society. So I will kill this man and we're gonna eat this man. So the people of this man will have a motive to attack us and eat us as well. And when they do this, we're gonna have the same motive of doing this to them. And they are living this. This is the base of the society. They do not eat people because they like the taste or anything like that. They do not eat people regularly, like a lunch or a steak or a snack. They do this in a very specific moment, in a very specific condition, in very rarely as well. So the Handstaden book say that they do this like often, all the time, like and then this meat, this imaginary barbecue cannibal indigenous start in Europe and never take place. They never today in Brazil, the anthropologists are studying this ritual because it was a very complex ritual, and we cannot. That barbecue feast of cannibals never happened in Brazil. It was a very sacred and complex ritual. We have here another engraving of Debray when the barbecue is happening. Center of the Hans Staden pointing the finger to the sky. God will punish you. You are not from God. You are devilish people. Montaigne and was very
Sorry to
impacted about this
interrupt.
book. I'm
Beto,
sorry.
sorry to interrupt. Just to tell you that we already arrived 15 minutes. So if you can summarize a little bit, for us to have time for questions.
Okay, so we have here Montaigne in his essays, and in the 16th century, he said that he cannot understand why the Europeans people are so freak out about the cannibals, because for him, the cannibals are very civilized people because they do not torture people. They eat a dead man. They do not do the torture that the church and the Europeans made in the New World. So we have, I will pass this very quickly. We have the Tupinamba Cape that I speak in the ritual, and this cape was never, we have none of them in Brazil. Currently, the location of 11 remaining capes producing during Brazilian colonial period is known. They are all found in Europe, in museums in Denmark and Switzerland, Belgium, France, and Italy. Because this cape became a frenzy in Europe, we see at the Chateau de Versailles, we see it in the Netherlands painting, and the cape is coming back to us now, at least one of them. The National Museum of Denmark announced the return of a Tupinamba cape, which will become part of the collection of the National Museum, Rio de Janeiro. We don't have any of these capes in Brazil. It's important to say that because the Tupinamba culture was slaughtering during the colonization, they do not. We have Tupinambás here in Brazil, and the Tupinambás have a great the Tupinambás start the trade to make this cape come back to us, especially Glyceria Tupinambá. This is the first time a Tupinambá contemporary saw at live one of these original capes from the 17th century. It's a beautiful image. And I will like to end this discussion with this perfect statement from Rita Laura Segato, Argentine anthropologist. What is people? A people is a project of being a history. When the history woven collectively is intercepted and interrupted, the collective subjects intend to pick up the treats, make small notes, saturate the memory, and continue. What we can call a return of the history must occur. A restitution of the ability to weave one's own historical path. So I will end here my presentation. I want to thank you very much for the patient. It's a very dense team, and I have to pass fast through some things, but this.
Thank you very much, Roberto. I'm really sorry I had to tell you about time because I was fascinated with your presentation. And by the chat, I can see that Alba and probably the rest were as well. Now we are open for questions, and while let's see if somebody has any questions or observations. I would just like to remember something that is very interesting, that this South American cannibals got really, they became a fever during all this historical period that you talked, and then they had a revival afterwards, probably during the 70s and 80s. I think Felipe is over here, maybe he can even correct me if I'm wrong, with Italian cannibal movies that got really popular over there. And these movies were really centered in South America, identifying this cannibalist aspect and primitive and all of this xenophobic elements that we see. Uh, well, just this observation, and I have some folklore research as well about some things in Brazil, and afterwards we could talk about this in private, maybe do something together. I thought it was really, really interesting. Ellen has a question, Patricia has a question. If you want to comment something about what I said, you can comment, or I can just pass to Ellen, what you prefer.
Yeah, I think it's very important to talk about the cannibal frenzy again. I mean, we have the movies, we have Cannibal Holocaust, we have the even nowadays Green Inferno, a very contemporary movie about the cannibals here in America. What I want to say with this research is that we have the Wendigo, and the Wendigo is a very popular creature, a very popular being of the horror movies and horror TV shows and horror literature. So, but the Wendigo conception is very based on these roots in the Europe of the cannibals in the Brazil and the cannibals in all the South America. So when the British came to America, we have 100 years from Handstaden books launch and became an amazing success, and so they have already a conception of what is Native American indigenous people in America as general, not just South America, North America, Central America. So this is very important. We can discuss this because it's the roof, is the root of the Wendigo today mythology, because the original mythology of the Wendigo is the curse and the hunger. There's no pleasure. There is no transubstantiation of the flesh. This came from the Handstaden books and accounts of Brazilian people, indigenous. So we have a cultural transference in there.
Ellen?
Hi everyone. I just loved that you brought this subject, this work here, because it was a great presentation, even though you had not much time. But I've been thinking when you said this book and it is even out yet, like 2018, they made a new version of it. So I was thinking a new version, like a new edit, I guess, in 2018. So I was thinking, after you studied so much about the indigenous people of Brazil and their rituals, maybe have a narrative, like making a narrative about a European scared and like being fooled by them, because he made a stereotyped history about narrative about us, about the indigenous people. And I was thinking maybe you have thought about a narrative in other way, like making him the fool. I don't know if I'm being clear, but that's my question.
Yeah, it's very clear. Well, I don't know. Here in Brazil, we don't have a consensus of what was indeed the Tupinambá anthropophagic ritual. We have a lot of discussion. Brazilian anthropologists are studying now, until now, the ritual. So we cannot say per se what is a true and what is a lie. We only know now that the lie is that cannibal lunch. They do not lunch people. They do not eat people all the time. They they do this ritualistically and seasonally. So you cannot say that these people eat for pleasure. They do not do this. They do this for. So we have a lot of misunderstanding in the book of Handstaden. He was not a writer; he was a military mercenary man, and his book is is a copy of a lot of books of this time. And the only thing new he brought is the anthropophagic ritual. Is that because the anthropophagic people are the cover of the book, because this is the new he brings from America, the cannibals for the first time. So I guess the new studies here in Brazil are trying to debunk him, to not to make him kind of shame because he's dead a long time ago, thank God. So we are a big but to make the Tupinamba people arise again. This is the important thing, as the anthropologist Rita that I quoted in the end said, we need to gain the story again. And that scene when a Tupinamba woman contemporary see the Cape in Europe and bring this Cape to Brazil, to Rio de Janeiro, it's amazing. We 500 years are coming back to the sacred things are getting out of museums and coming back to the people and to the country. So that's it.
Thank you
I
very
understood so many things more about your work right now. So thank you.
uh thank you. Patricia has a question.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. When Roberto was talking about the Wendigo, it reminds me the lions in Africa that the legend, if they eat human meat, they always need to eat more, need more. So, like the movie The Ghost and the Darkness from 1996, the lion is strong and it's powerful, and that's why they made the connection with the Wendigo. And it reminds me that Lestat, the name of Lestat is Lestat Leoncourt. Lestat of Leoncourt. So Leon, oh, lion, né? Lion. So that's what made me reminds me these things. The Wendigo, the human that start to eating always want more and get powerful. That's why I was thinking about that, just that.
Oh, I just think that this particular thing, once you taste human flesh, you cannot go back. Since for animals and for vampire and for monsters in general, we see this as a very, very colonial thought about the taboo of the cannibals and the anthropophagic people and the anthropophagic rituals and the anthropophagic culture. So we are we see these things, and this is in the root of our culture. So that's a great comment.
Thank you very much. Vogel has a question over there.
Hi, Beto. I think it's very interesting your research, and I'm just thinking about a movie from Nelson Pereira dos Santos called "How Test Was My Frenchman." That's so interesting, and sometimes we Brazilian we don't recognize that we are so good in comedies, and we talk a lot of our society in comedies. And this movie, I think, is very interesting because it's so ironic and try to show a vision from the Indians too. It's just a comment.
Yes, this movie was literally inspired by the Hans Staden book. Hans Staden, Monteiro Lobato, a very famous writer here in Brazil, especially for kids. He had a hero called Hans Staden, and it is like a Marco Polo. He was a hero from Brazil. He works, he travels. So this is the colonial mind. Now we are talking about Monteiro Lobato, what we can expect from them, but the Light Frenchman is incredible movie. Is we have I think 2 more movies about Hans Staden in Brazil, and it's a very so it's a very interesting thing to see this as a catharsis. laugh about this very painful, the violence, the different process that the new.
Uh, uh, thank you much for the question.
European and South Americans, and hearing that they will be devoured by the native indigenous people, and how many of fictions that you mentioned, like Hannibal, use the imagery of the Wendigo to present Hannibal as the man monster, so to say, as the sophisticated monster. And at the same time, right here in Brazil, we have a very interesting movement on our modernist art called the Manifesto Antropofágico, the Anthropophagus Manifesto, that the proposition was just about it, to devour the culture of outside and regurgitate another art. And when influenced so many of our art right here, like the Brazilian Tropicalia. And how do you see this attempt to resignify this fear of the colonizer, they will be devoured by the colonized, and how the colonizers use the same figure of the man devourers to fight back, artistically speaking?
Well, we have a very, thank you for the question, Bernardo. It's a very difficult question, but it's, here in Brazil, we are a colonized country. We have a colonized mind, so we have a colonized history, and the anthropophagic movement that started in the beginning of the 19th and the 20th century here in Brazil. They are trying to make a new race of Brazilians who are like a very original race with the Europeans, indigenous, Africans, like mixed culture and one single culture. And today we have a lot of indigenous philosophers here in Brazil who don't like this movement because they think they they appropriate the indigenous culture in this anthropophagic movement, like they appropriate Macunaíma, who was a hero for and sacred for a certain people here in Brazil. And in the book and in the story of Macunaíma from the anthropophagic movement, it was portrayed as a terrible person, as a lazy person, as the Brazilian indigenous man and African man. And so the anthropophagic, they appropriate anthropophagic as the act of just eating people and be cannibals because that was cool, and because this was what we are and what Europe think of us. But the indigenous say that they do not approach this theme like, where are the anthropophagic people? They are slaughtered during the colonization. They vanished. They lost their culture. They lost even their capes. They lost even their coats for Europe. So I see this movement as a very important for us as Brazilian and in principle, but I would love to talk about more about it, but as we say, it's a problematic thinking to think about how the indigenous people contemporary see all these movements made by white people here in Brazil, you know. But it's a very interesting question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beto. We are pretty late already, but since we have like just tons of Brazilian questions, if there's any non-Brazilian person who wants to make a question, I can open one more. If not, we can continue. So now we are going to continue our conference with the last paper on the session, that is Carlo Guilherme's Vogel. I need to turn him into a co-host so he can
Okay.
put his presentation over there. That's good. I already put you as a co-host. I think you can
Okay. Let me see now.
you can share your PowerPoint now, and I'm going to present your bio while you do this. So Carlos Guilherme Vogel, he's a PhD student in communication in Universidade do Estado do Rio de Janeiro. He's a screenwriter, director, and film producer. He graduated in screenwriting at Escola de Cinema Darcy Ribeiro. He also studied at EICTV in Cuba and Prague Film School in the Czech Republic. Master and PhD students in communication, he conducts researches on Brazilian cinema and audiovisual productions. Among the films he directed, there are Soccer Boys, Copinha Sentimento, The Player, and Danças do Coração. In 2021, he made his debut in literature with the novel Milonga, Milonga de Pampa Esquecido, Song of a Forgotten Pampa. In 2022, he published the essay Complexidade Narrativa e Ficção Seriada no Audiovisual Brasileiro, translated as Narrative Complexity and Serial Dramas in Brazilian Audiovisual Landscape. He's going to present the work A Vampire Under the Sun, Vampirism in Brazilian Erotic Comedies of the 1970s. So, Vogel, the stage is yours.
Okay. Hello, I'm Carlos Guilherme Vogel. I'm from Brazil, like everybody here, almost everybody. I research, my research are about the cycle of porno chanchada or the erotic comedies produced in Brazil in the 70s. Yeah, I'm specifically focused in the movies produced in Rio. Yeah. That's a little bit different from the movies produced in São Paulo in the same period. Real movies at that time are characterized as an usual comedies with a strong presence of beaches, the sun, a body is considered beautiful and an appeal to eroticism. And the crossing with my research, there is the military dictatorship, the censorship, the sexual freedom in the 60s and 70s, the Brazilian society, and the city of Rio and other subjects, maybe. Okay. When I was thinking about this presentation, I think that Rio is a totally inhospitable city to a vampire, because it's a very sunny city. It's always showed like a sunny city with beaches, with young people, with surfers. And the movies of that period used this way to show the city. Yeah. But when I was watching these movies, I found this one that's called The Vampire of Copacabana. And when I read the synopsis that was available on the internet site, I'm not become so interested. But how I am studying these movies, I decided to watch, and I think I become very surprised with this movie because it's so interesting. And I think this movie dialogue with my hypothesis of my thesis that these movies are not just comedies with nothing to say. Yeah. For me, this character, this middle-class sociologist who lives in Rio, in the neighborhood in Copacabana, maybe is the opposite with the standard of man. If you think about the standard, we are talking about that a man must marry, have children, support his family, and be the strongest figure in the home. If possible, he should also be a good Christian man and agree with the ideas of the government. He must fit into what constitutes the traditional Brazilian family. And thinking about the recent conservatorship wave in Brazil, I'm not sure if I'm talking about a man from the 70s or from nowadays, because I think our society is doing a circle and not go away. We are talking about watching these movies. I think we are talking about the same things since that time in some subjects. Well, then I decided to talk about the movie following the narrative, okay? And then we are knowing a little bit more about this character, Carlos. Like a good self-respecting man in Brazil, Carlos has a lover. But right at the beginning of the film, they have one last meeting and then she rejects him. And this moment is the beginning of his saga in search of himself. Carlos is the opposite of what's considered a typical carioca from Rio's Burgos. And he is not a strong man. He is not considered by standard beauty pattern. He's not considered a beautiful man. He is not a surfer man. And he is married with a very beautiful woman, and the beauty from her make him insecure. Yeah, he have some. There is a scene that he is reflecting about his neighbor, and when his neighbor talk about his women, he made a lot of conjectures because he's a very insecure man. At the same time, what Sueli demands is a stable life to their family. And I think these questions of Sueli make him against his ideas, because he says he is against the exploitation of the capitalism. And then when the owner of their apartment decided to increase the rent, they considered it unfair, and then he started a fight with the owner of the apartment, and then he decides to stop to pay the rent. And when this started this fighting, he put his family on the verge of losing the place where they live. And he is always in these paradoxical situations. And then there is a small sequence in in the film that's not apparently is not connected with the narrative, because he's not sick, he's not have any problem, he's not things about this in question in the movie. But there is a small plan that when is subject to a radiological examination, and then I think at the same time we are invited to reflect about his character. Who is he? And then when I'm thinking about why he's considered a vampire, I look for some quotations about it, and then I found a book of Yuri that talks something that I think is so related with this character of the movie. They talk about the paradoxical situations that he lives in the movie, and then you would say that the figure of a vampire, in addition to mystery, is surrounded by paradoxes. And then I think this character has a lot of paradoxes. Also, I think about Vampirotoides Infernalis from Willem Flusser, that talks about a creature that lives in the abyss of the ocean and is the opposite like human. And I think here Carlos is maybe the opposite of the family man, is the opposite of the Carioca's Burgess style. He didn't connect with these social patterns, and I think it's interesting because when you think about the opposite, we can reflect that we don't exist without the opposite, and I think Carlos is like this. But there are some moments in the movie that he tries to connect with this reality, with these tentatives of being this man that society wants, and these tentatives are not so don't have success. There's a sequence in that he met his old friends, and he feels that his friends changed his mind, and he not changed. He becomes with his ideals. There's a moment too that Carlos and Sueli try to relive their days of the relationship, and it's a comic situation because it's impossible. He doesn't park the car in the same place we used it to go before the wedding, and it's difficult to him to get connection again with his woman. And then in this moment of the move, start the carnival in Rio, and the carnival is the right time for a possible transformation for this character. And then during 4 days, he walks around Rio dressed in a vampire costume and try to found his personality. And it's interesting because he tries to scare people, but no one is scared by him. And there are these comic situations. But in that moment of the movie at night, he finally finds his victim. I think he's looking for a woman to maybe to think he is still a good lover, and in the sex he tried to act like a vampire, sucking the blood of the victims. And maybe in this moment he gets the revenge against his lover. And I think he feels desirable again in this moment. But Carnival ends, and then Carlos needs to back to his life, to real life. And then when he arrives at home, he meets his wife, and she was at the carnival too. She also has her questions. And then in this moment, he have a good moment. They dance, they kiss each other, they seems happy. But when in the final plan of the movie, he is so sad again, and then maybe we think that he will continue in this situation with his questions. And this is the Vampire of Copacabana. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Vogel. And thank you for quoting me in your presentation. It was quite honorable. Now open for questions if anybody wants to pose Vogel any question. Well, I'm going to do the same while people take courage or think about questions I would like to ask you. I know that you are not a vampire specialist, but I know that you are a filmmaker, a Brazilian movie specialist. So I know that you have a great background in Brazilian movies, especially this exact period that you were presenting over there. And one thing that is very common, and I already passed through this through different researchers, is the fact that vampires don't have a good adherence to Brazilian culture. Of course, we have the soap operas that are very pop culture, so they have this international dialogue in terms of trending. But in cinematographic aspect, we have a lack of vampires. It's something that I've always noticed. And you put a movie from the 70s that was a very erotic period in cinema in Brazil, and a movie that has a very erotic aspect. So based on your contextual background about movies in Brazil, do you think that maybe the fact that this vampire movie appeared in this time is due to this sexual element that is probably the most trendy part of the vampire in our cinematographic culture?
Yeah, I think when the vampire appears in our comic movies, and about the 70s, I think all the movies, not all, but there's a lot of movies that explore the eroticism. And then I think the strange elements are put into contact with the eroticism. Yeah. But I think I can relate it. I think the interesting way is to put a vampire in comedy too, because they are not so calm character, but in these movies he's related like this. but it's not it's a comedy, but ironic comedy, because he was always lost in the middle of the narrative. He's not a so-called character. He is put in comic situations, I think. And I think the eroticism is maybe a relation with some aspects of with our society. And Rio is always showed like a hot city, a sexual city. And then I think the character, the vampire, try to dialogue with this sexual way about our city was related to. But I think we have other situations. I think in the Production Shadows of São Paulo, we have another kind of characters. There's a movie from John Woo called that's with Eugene Miller and Patricia Scalve. I forgot the name now. That she was two vampire woman, not vampire, but she almost vampire's woman that tried to make revenge against the man. And we have, I think we have interesting characters in our movies that related with the vampirism.
Yeah, more metaphorically, but related.
Yeah.
Now that's a good thought. Bernardo?
Hi, Vogel. First, great presentation, first of all. And I would like to ask, besides the eroticism that these vampire movies from Brazil are charged with, it's very common also, as I came to realize, that they are frequently comedies, and such as the movie from Ivan Cardoso, The Seven Vampire Woman, or the two soap operas that we had by Antônio Calmon, Vamp e O Beijo do Vampiro, and the comical character of Chico Anísio, Beto Carneiro, the Brazilian vampire. And I'd like to know how you feel, such as this translation of the myth from the European myth of the vampire and Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, and to the Brazilian culture. We didn't have a tradition of, so to say, pure horror movies such as the Coffin Joe ones. They are frequently more like gothic dramas or horror comedies. What is your view on that mix of horror and comedy, so the Brazilian spectators could watch?
I think it is so interesting, because sometimes we don't recognize that we are very good at comedies, and sometimes the comedies are put in by side. I know we don't talk about it because it's not good movies, and we have a lot of good movies, comedy movies in this period, talk with important things, and I think we can mix this different elements, like the comedy, the vampirism, to talk about the social questions we have. And I think we can find good movies about the situations. There is another one from, I don't remember the director, called it's from, I think, the 80s, 82 maybe, Banquete das Taras. I don't know the name in English. That also call about a vampire. That's a man who lives in Nova Friburgo, maybe that's, and then comes a guy from Romania, and then I think the man is like an assessor from the Dracula, and this man who lives in Brazil is a descendant of Dracula, and then he needs to be a vampire, and then they related this situation with sexual elements too. But I think this movie is more it just tell us a interesting history, but doesn't dialogue with important question of our society. How is the vampire of Copacabana? I think, yeah. But I think we have good dialogue with these elements. We can make good movies just for fun or for have good discussions too. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think is the possibilities are various possibilities and very interesting too.
Okay, thank you very much, Vogel. Any more?
Can I just
Yes,
can
yes,
I have
sure.
a comment, guys? Because I don't know how to raise my hand here without ruining everything. So thank you very much for this presentation, first of all. And I just because I can see that the Brazilian mafia has been formed here in this session. And I'm a European, so guys, just in perspective of what you were talking about, that first of all, thank you very much for introducing us to the topic. I remember last year Laura was talking about Brazilian film, and I don't remember the title, but it was 1972, the same as Blackula, and that was very Brazilian on one hand, and on the other hand, we could still identify with the themes. So that was definitely a Brazilian movie, like intrinsically Brazilian, but at the same time, you could also watch it on a universal level. So I would be very interesting, because where I am in Poland, you can hardly find anything from Brazil, unless you specifically know what to look for. So I think that there is a challenge for you guys to flood us with your Brazilian movies, because we are very willing to watch them, but we need to know what to watch, and they are fascinating. You were talking about erotic productions, and in terms of vampirism, it's obvious, and the connection is obvious, but also it's this whole 70s, because that was the 70s film mainly, weren't they? Weren't they the 70s, or am I mistaking something? Yeah, it was, I think. So that was also what was happening in Europe, for instance. So the 70s is a cultural trend, and we have a lot of bad movies in Poland that were made in the 70s, and they are more or less touching on the same problems and subjects. So please talk to us about Brazilian films, and I'd like you guys, and we have to have this conversation, Yuri, after the conference, because we can maybe organize some watching meetings as well, even if we are in different continents. Maybe that's an idea for an alternative meeting type.
Yeah, it's just for me, to my research, I have found some difficulties to watch these movies, because these movies were not preserved. We don't find these available with good quality. This one, the vampires, I found on YouTube, because we have a TV channel that shows a lot of Brazilian movies, and then some of these movies were captured from these presentations and then available in YouTube. But now, for example, I'm trying to organize a small festival about this film of this period, and I'm having some difficulty to find who have the honors, the rights of the movies. And it's one problem, but when I find people, okay, you are interested in this movie, why? And the other problem is to find these movies with good quality. And then but it is interesting this question, because I think at the same time I'm talking with some young people, and they are interested in know these old movies from Brazil too. And then I think it's not a question from European people that doesn't know these movies. Here in Brazil, we don't know too.
All
these
the place.
movies.
Yeah. You know what? It's the same in my country, to be honest. The things I
Yeah.
was talking about on the first day of the conference are also mostly unknown to Polish persons. So you have to know what to look for and what
Yeah.
you're interested in. Yeah, thank you so much. That
Thank-
was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Vogel. If we have no more questions, we'll move on. And yes, highlighting
So
what
shall I-
Mike just said, it's difficult for us, even Brazilians, to know all these things. In fact, we Brazilians, we don't know these movies. They are very difficult for us to find a few things. And I study movies, but I'm not really a specialist in Brazilian movies. I go more for mainstream movies, and having people like Laura last year and Vogel this year and Bernardo. Bernardo talked about Renfield, but he's a really a good specialist in Brazilian movies. Is something that brings us a refreshing view on this as well. So thank you very much, and let's move on.